All right, welcome to the Jazz Piano School Podcast, episode number 251. My name is Brendan Lowe. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to be going over a third installment of this four-part series, and I'm going to be going over major 7 bebop approaches, major 7 bebop lines, and I actually digress a little bit and talk about connecting bebop approaches and what it means to elevate your improv. How do we actually make our improvisation sound better? Because it's not just a mysterious thing. It's not magical. There's foundational tactical strategies to actually start improving your improv and making it sound like a professional jazz pianist. And I talk about those things in this particular episode. Stay tuned for the 4th installment of this coming up in a couple weeks when I'm going to combine the 2-5-1 chords I've just talked about and all the bebop approaches. Obviously, check out jazzpianoschool.com for all of our free education. If you're looking for a little bit more help, we do have a membership available. With that being said, let's dive right in this episode. All right, welcome to the Jazz Piano School Podcast, episode number 151. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. This is a fun series I'm doing. In this podcast episode, I'm going to finish off the last chord of a 2-5-1, your major 7 bebop approaches and bebop lines. And then in the following episode, which is going to be in a couple weeks because I'm going to be traveling and doing some things on business and pleasure actually combined into both. But I will release another pod, the final installment of this 4-part series, which will be on connecting all of the chords in a 2-5-1, utilizing the bebop approaches that I've talked about and educated you on in the past 3, including this one, 3 episodes. So that's going to be really, really fun. How to connect all those lines together, how to work with them, how to integrate them into your playing, obviously, how to use them in tunes, and how to make some actual music out of them. So there's not going to be much change to this because, again, just like the last one, the only note that's changing now is just one note. So we made one note change from minor to dominant. Then we have another one note change from dominant to major, and that's going to be the flat 7 moving to the major 7. The flat 7 moving to the major 7. So that's going to be fun. Don't really have much housekeeping stuff for you today. We're really kind of just focusing on content these days, month in, month out. We're trying to really build a foundation for some things to come, working behind the scenes. I don't want to give anything away, but again, we're kind of just steamrolling content right now, trying to help you guys out as much as possible. We always have our membership open for you. If you're interested, you can go to jazzpianoschool.com. We have a monthly membership and we have a lifetime membership available. If you get on our email list, occasionally we run promotions on individual courses. If you want any of the individual courses that we have available, you can always go to the courses tab on the Jazz Piano School homepage to view all the courses we have available. The full curriculum is only available through the membership or lifetime membership. And there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember. Sterling's going to be doing the next 2 episodes for you guys coming up, which is going to be really, really fun. I always love his education. And man, he's sounding so good. He's so good. It's just amazing. You know, he's immersed in New York City right now, getting his master's degree at Manhattan School of Music, you know, and he's living the life. Like he's doing it. And I was there, you know, for my undergrad. And when you're in New York, you get your butt kicked. So you really have no option but to get better. And everyone's challenging you, pushing you, and it's a great experience. So Sterling, I'm so blessed and grateful to have him so willing and kind, a part of the team. Obviously, Bijan, always, if you are a member of Jazz Piano School, you're part of our Facebook group. Bijan is our head educator there in the Facebook group, answering questions, helping members, so on and so forth. And occasionally Trent Bryden will do some podcasts for us and some content as well. So I think that's really it. If you guys go to jazzpianoschool.com/blueprint, you can get a nice starter blueprint of the full curriculum and a lot of amazing information that we have at Jazz Piano School. And so if you're kind of just, you know, checking us out for the first time, then go to jazzpianoschool.com/blueprint and you can get a free blueprint, lots of free education and a free assessment that'll be sent to you as well. All right. So I think with that being said, let's dive right into this episode. Here we go. All right, so here we are. We're going to be doing the major 7th chord now. And again, like I said, only one note has changed here, and that's going to be the major 7th. So we went from dominant into major 7, right? So now we have this one note, and this is going to change our bebop approaches slightly around this note. I'm not going to cover the other notes as much as I did last time over the dominant because, again, they're all the same. We have our chord scale above, half step below, right? We have the opposite. We have our chromatics. All of those great stuff. And again, by this point, if you haven't checked out the first installment of this series or the second one covering minor 7 bebop approaches and dominant, go check that out. On the major 3rd, the most popular one I talked about last time, this one right here, right? That's not as popular. Not many bebop players use it. The giants don't use it, right? The greats. But this one, not that second part, but again, especially, I mean, that is used a lot. But if there's any approach to the 3rd you need to learn, it's this one. Or without the chord scale above, you can just learn the chord scale below, half step below, into the 3rd, okay? The 5th on our major 7 chord, right, is the same. All the same approaches that I talked about last time. And again, those can be combined with the 3rd and the root. Let's get into the 7th now, because on our major 7, our new chord tone is this 7, right? So, again, one of the most popular bebop approaches over the 7 is going to be just simply a half step below, right? Something like that, right? Chord scale above to half step below, you know, again, any combination of that. Right? Very nice one. The opposite way. Right? Now, just as a kind of a side point, rhythmically, when going and approaching your bebop approaches, you need to kind of think about a concept, which is having the chord tones land on downbeats. Now, you don't have to have, one of our members asked this not too long ago, you don't have to always have the chord tone land on the downbeat when you're playing your bebop approaches, because as long as it resolves later in your line, that's okay. But you do need some resolution at some point in your line for that chord tone to land on a downbeat. For example, if I go 4 and 1, right? I'm landing now on the downbeat of 1, so the chord tone is landing on 1, right? But if I start my approach to the 7 in an anticipated way, meaning I go 4 and 1, right? Or 4 and 1. Now this 13 is on the downbeat of 1. So if I start creating a line, and this is how you kind of get out of sticky situations when creating bebop lines. This is how you start to create improv, actually, and realization of how your lines flow together through rhythmic processing and understanding of resolution, tension resolution. For example, so if I go 4 and 1, after practicing this, immediately I'm going to realize that I'm on the downbeat of a 1. So I need to do something to flip them. I need to do something to resolve that tension, because there's tension when there's not chord tones on downbeats. It creates tension. So if I go 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, I've utilized another bebop approach to get me to the 5, which has now fallen on a downbeat. And what this is really thought of as a delayed resolution. It's like a delayed resolution into another chord tone that creates the release of the tension. So 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Or I could go 4 and 1 and 2, right? That would land on 2. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? So now we're all evened out. We're all squared out. 4 and 1. So there's a lot of different options that can either get you directly back onto a chord tone. So if I go 4 and 1, I'm already on the downbeat of 1. I could go 4 and 1. do something like that. And already my chord tones are lining up on the downbeats again. Now, when I say lining up, I don't mean you always have to have chord tones on downbeats. You don't, but you just need some sort of resolution. And the most important area is the switch of the measure, meaning on the downbeat of 1. That's the most important. In between the measure, it really doesn't matter as much, but when that harmony changes, right, when your chord changes from minor to dominant to major, it's really important for your solos to sound good. You want your downbeats to land on chord tones or resolve to a chord tone just a little bit later in the measure, right? So 1 and 2. So if I did like an approach to the 1 over a minor chord, or I could go. So 1, 4. If I could start this on the downbeat of 1, 1 and 2 and 3. Right? And so I'm landing on 3, but again, not all your approaches are going to line up to be downbeats. And when this happens, right, you have to figure out a way to get back. And that just comes with time, practice, and utilizing all the approaches. I'm kind of digressing here. Let's get back to the 7, right? And if I did something like 4 and 1 and, 4 and 1 and 2, no chord tone yet has fallen on downbeat. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Do you hear how the resolution happens there? Because from here, 4 and 1 and 2. Now I'm adding the sharp 11 in here. I have the 9 and the 13 on downbeats and the sharp 11 on the upbeat. So essentially, there hasn't really been any chord tone that anchors the sound, anchors the harmony. It's really, really important to have your improv sound good. This is 99% of the time the reason that students' improvisation doesn't really sound within the harmony, or it doesn't sound like jazz or like you're playing the harmonies, is because of this concept that I'm teaching you right now. If there's anything that you're wondering about, like, why doesn't my improv sound good? It's probably this. It's probably this, right? If you are kind of a medium skilled player, you do know some bebop approaches, but it's just not sounding right, it's probably this concept right here. So 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. You hear how that falls to a resolution there? Right? And then it keeps going and we're like, it's smoothed out. And then I can resolve to the 1 or wherever I want to go from there, right? So 4 and 1 and 2, right? Let's add the sharp 11 back in there again. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Then I resolve again. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. You hear how the bebop approaches create that tension and release? Listen closely. I'll play it slowly. Right? So you can really hear how bebop approaches create tension in lines and then start to release it by resolving to chord tones. That's the whole purpose of the bebop approach. You know, I was playing at a little digression again. I was playing for I was subbing for a high school band for the pianist, actually, in around the area that I live. And essentially, this high school band is phenomenal. But all of the students, usually a high school level, all of the solos at high school, unless they're really advanced players, they sound like this. Okay, I'm going to give you a demonstration. Now, if your playing sounds anything like that too, that's completely okay, because in my improvisation system, that's step number 2. What you're doing right now is you're using diatonic harmony, you're using the modes, you're landing on chord tones, but it still sounds like a beginner solo. Even if I add rhythms and melodies, more melodic motifs into this and rhythmic motifs, it's still not going to really sound like jazz, right? I could do this. So I'm adding much more melodic content, more space, more maturity, right? More texture, more musicality. Right? But it still doesn't really sound like advanced, like, oh, that person can play a little bit, right? But it doesn't sound that great. And the reason for this is because there are literally no bebop approaches in their playing. And in order to get the sound of jazz, we need this balance of tension and release. Because right now, there's no tension. It's all diatonic movement in improvisation through the key of C that I'm playing in. And then, going to this A7, which turns us around, that gives a little variation because that A7 chord is not within the key of C. Right? So we get the C sharp in here, and our ears perk up. We're like, oh, okay, that sounds a little good, right? But we don't get any of this. Right? We don't get any ins and outs, tension, release, and that's all bebop approach notes do. All right, so I'm kind of digressing on the 7 because, again, there's not much more to this. And I'm trying to lead into the next podcast episode that I'm going to do, the next installment of this, which is going to be connection of the lines. So you really want to start to work on your bebop approaches to advance your level, to elevate your level from this right? To more of this. Right? Something like that. And as you start to get more tension, more release, and you're starting to utilize bebop approaches to weave in and out of the chord tones. That's all I'm doing. I'm weaving around the chord tone, creating tension, and then resolving. And then around the chord tone, and then resolving. So I'm quickly picking different, and then in between, I'm just using scalar motion from the mode. Scalar motion from the scale or the key that I'm in, or some sort of improv tool, maybe an altered scale, right? That's in between bebop approaches. Most students don't even know what an improv line looks like in elements, as far as block elements go. Like, what is the sound of jazz visually, like looking at a picture? Like, if I could draw, I should do this. I'm going to create a resource, but I would, if you look at an improvised line, if I draw a square here, it's a bebop approach. And then I draw another longer square, scalar motion, or some sort of improv tool. It could be just a diatonic scale, another bebop approach, some sort of improv tool, another bebop approach, and then again, each bebop approach is either landing on a chord tone or not. So you have these blocks: bebop approach, chord tone, scalar motion, bebop approach, chord tone, scalar motion. And visually, those are the Lego building blocks that add up to create lines in jazz. And as we start to elevate that even more, we start to add in musicality, texture, space, rhythm, improvisational tools like the blues scale. Slides, textures, trills, right? These little elements that elevate what we've already done and bring our skill level and sound to the next level, right? It's not a mystery. Jazz is not a mystery. It's not like, oh man, that guy sounds good just because of luck, or that girl sounds good just because of luck. Whoever it is, they don't just sound good because of luck or just because of it's because of certain things that they're doing. Like the way they're playing the lines. But at the foundation of thing, the core of improv, like theoretically, everyone is really doing the same thing, but they take different spins, approaches, or improv styles differently. Some person may not, like Chick and a lot of Herbie, like they're not playing bebop. They're more modern players. McCoy, right? They're using different stylistic elements, But make no mistake, there are stylistic, theoretical, foundational elements that they are using to create the sound that they're generating, right? They're using certain music theoretical elements to create that modern sound. Fourths, things like that, right? So you really want to be aware of more than just like improv is magic. It's not really magic. It's not just some magical like thing that just materializes as we just play more, right? That's the problem I always had. It's the issue I always had. What you want to do is take what I'm teaching you right now, segment it, really work on each chord tone. Work on all your half-step belows. I literally did this through Autumn Leaves in every key. This is an assignment I had in college. I had to literally play through all the chords to Autumn Leaves, go through all my half-step belows, all my chord scale above, combine them, flip-flop them, and play that through all 12 keys of Autumn Leaves. I mean, if you want to get to the level that you're looking to create freedom, like these are just the things you have to do. And guaranteed any professional, amazing player can do that as well. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. Like, I don't want to scare you. I'm not trying to scare you, but like, that's the commitment. That's the level of dedication it takes to really get this under your fingers, right? So go through your chord tone slowly. Just work on your half-step belows. Practice. I shouldn't have done that. That's going to be our next podcast, is connecting the chords, right? But just work on one chord. Work on all your minor chords. Right? Then go to your next chord, G minor. Then go to C minor. Right? So now what I'm doing is I'm just starting a bebop line with the half step below to my root, right? And then you do that for dominant. Right? Then you do that for major. Right? So on and so forth. Then you go to your third, or for your minors rather. Dominance, right? And then majors. And you just start playing around with all these different approaches to all the different chord tones of different chords. Right? And just make it a commitment for your practicing to do your minors one week, and then your dominants one week, and then your major sevenths one week, right? And so on and so forth. And maybe you get into your minor 2-5-1s. I haven't taught that yet, right? But you can get into these things. You can check out, obviously, more education that Jazz Piano School has, or if you're a member, right, you can go through all the chord bebop approaches for your minors as well. But this is kind of a lead-in into the next podcast I'm going to do, and it's going to be on connecting chords. And actually, I liked some of the education that was coming out today that I was teaching you guys about the visualization of what an actual jazz line looks like. Not notated, because notes just look like notes, really, right? They just look like notes. It's kind of really, it's difficult to see what's happening, because like when you see a bebop solo, or any solo for that matter, so many notes, it's like overwhelming. But if you see like a picture storyboard of like the line, right? That's really cool. That's a really cool concept. As a teacher, we find many new things that come out during the educational process to help students, to help you learn better. So I'm going to take that to heart. I'm going to use that in the next podcast. I'll draw a little picture board of a bebop line, what it actually looks like. Maybe I'll take some Bud Powell lines, some Charlie Parker lines, Wynton Kelly, who knows. And I will storyboard out the line in pictures, right? So you can actually see what these lines look like, because when you simplify it down to just pictures, it's like, man, that's all that's happening. There's really simple elements that are connecting all of them together, right? Simple elements, and it happens over and over and over again, okay? All right, so practice all your bebop approaches, right? Your different bebop approaches I've taught you in this episode. There's only one change here, right? I think I forgot this one. Don't forget your chord scale above, chord scale below, half step below into your 7. Okay, that's a great one to use there. I don't really use many more besides that. So the ones that I went over today, those are going to be your most popular for all your major 7th chord tones. Okay. Hope you guys had an amazing day, and happy practicing. I'll talk to you later. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of our free, amazing education, all of the free podcast blogs. We do have a membership if you're looking to take a next step forward with us, get access to over 1,000 different jazz piano videos, playbooks, mini courses, a main course curriculum, success path, and so much more. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@jazzpianoschool.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy practicing.